Welcome students, this is module 2.2.4, Facilitated Diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is the third type of passive process that we're discussing. The previous two were diffusion and osmosis. Facilitated diffusion may be defined as diffusion of substances across the cell membrane with the help of carrier proteins. And in this process, carrier proteins physically bind to substances on one side of the membrane and release them on the other side. And in this process, we're moving down the concentration gradient from an area of higher concentration to lower concentration. And it's true of many substances. They do not simply diffuse across the membrane, which you will recall has a dual nature, is both hydrophilic and hydrophobic. And so instead you have to have these special carrier proteins that will allow substances to move. And to go through these special carrier proteins requires a process of facilitated diffusion. Let's see if we can illustrate the process for you. So let's orient ourselves here. The yellow is the interior of the cell. This kind of, aqua color is the outside of the cell. You can see the lipid bilayer, and you can see our carrier protein, the purple blob here. The little red squares are the solutes, which are being moved down the gradient with facilitated diffusion. The first step is the protein carrier opens to the outside of the cell where the concentration is higher, and a solute particle can then enter the protein carrier. The carrier uses the energy of the gradient to move the solute down the gradient. In other words, there's no input of energy, and so it is a passive process. The solute particle will then enter the cell with no net input of energy. This shows all of the steps at once, so you can see them. Another expression of facilitated diffusion we can see here in this animation, in which the substances are being moved across in pretty much the way that was described previously with the still illustrations. And there it is, facilitated diffusion. Molecules move down a concentration gradient with the aid of carrier proteins. There are a couple of characteristics of facilitated diffusion that I would like you to be familiar with. First, the process is specific. Each type of carrier protein transports only certain, well, they call them substrates, but it would be solute molecules. So there will be, for example, I know the name of the specific protein that allows water to pass is called an aquaporin, and that's specific for water. And there are other protein carriers which are specific for other molecules. The process of facilitated diffusion is passive. And we've already emphasized this point, I think, but the substances are moved down the gradient from an area of greater concentration to lesser concentration, using the energy of the gradient to transport the solutes. And finally, the process saturates. If all carriers are being used, increasing the concentration of substrate molecules does not increase the transport rate. That's really more important for other classes where we might consider membrane physiology. Here in Biology 101, we're not going to. But it's still interesting to be aware of this fact that the rate does increase up to the point of saturation where all carriers are moving as fast as they can, and then it levels off. And this will conclude our discussion of facilitated diffusion. And we're also going to end this module here. It will be a rather short one.